Hello, my dear friends. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you to this special news update. Friends, the news that has surfaced today has created a lot of buzz everywhere, from social media to news platforms, since late last night. The reason is that this news is directly connected to financial relief and could potentially impact the pockets of millions of people. It is being reported that around 2 a.m. late at night, a major discussion emerged mentioning a possible $2,000 tariff dividend, and the name associated with this discussion is former U.S. President Donald Trump. As soon as this news surfaced, millions of people began asking several questions. Will a $2,000 payment actually be given? Who will qualify for this money? Will Social Security beneficiaries also be eligible? And if such a plan is implemented, what impact could it have on the U.S. economy? So friends, in today's video, we are going to understand this entire topic in detail. What is a tariff dividend? First of all, we need to understand what a tariff dividend actually is. A tariff is basically a tax placed on imported goods. When a country buys products from other countries, the government sometimes imposes a tax on those imported goods. The main purpose of this tax is often to protect domestic industries so that foreign companies do not completely dominate the local market. At the same time, tariffs also generate a significant amount of government revenue. Now, if the government decides to return a portion of that revenue directly to citizens, it is referred to as a tariff dividend. In simple terms, it means the government returns part of the money it earns from tariffs back to the people. Why has this discussion suddenly gained so much attention? Now, the big question is, why has this discussion suddenly gained so much attention? Recently, during discussions related to economic policies and trade strategies, the idea emerged that if tariffs generate large amounts of revenue, a portion of that money could potentially be returned to citizens. Some reports even suggested that the amount could be around $2,000 per person. However, it is important to note that no official announcement has been made yet, but the speed at which this news is spreading across social media and news platforms clearly shows that people are very interested in this topic. Why is this news important for Social Security beneficiaries? Friends, this news could especially impact people who rely on Social Security payments every month. In the United States, millions of people depend on Social Security benefits to support their daily lives after retirement. These payments are managed by the Social Security Administration. Beneficiaries include retired citizens, people with disabilities, and families receiving survivor benefits. For these individuals, any additional financial support can be extremely helpful. The impact of rising inflation. Over the past few years, inflation has been steadily increasing. Food prices have gone up, healthcare costs have become more expensive, energy bills and housing costs have also risen significantly. Because of this, the monthly Social Security payments many retirees receive are sometimes not enough to cover all expenses. That is why whenever news of additional financial assistance appears, it naturally raises hope among millions of people. How big is the amount of $2,000? If we look at the figure of $2,000, it is considered a substantial amount. In today's terms, $2,000 is roughly equivalent to $2,000 in direct financial support, which could help cover several months of essential expenses for many households. If such a payment were actually issued, it could provide major financial relief to millions of Americans. Would this be similar to a stimulus check? Another common question people are asking is whether this payment would be similar to a stimulus check. Stimulus checks are payments the government provides to citizens during times of economic crisis in order to support spending and stabilize the economy. If a tariff dividend program were implemented, it might potentially be issued as a one-time payment, similar to those stimulus checks. However, at this stage, it is still unclear how such payments would be distributed. Would Social Security recipients get this money? Now we come to the biggest question. Would Social Security recipients get this money? At the moment, there is no confirmed information about eligibility. However, several economic analysts believe that if such a plan were implemented, retirees and individuals with limited income could likely be included. This is because governments often prioritize people with fixed or limited income when designing financial relief programs. What do economic experts say? Many economic experts believe that if tariffs generate large amounts of revenue, returning a portion of that revenue to citizens could be possible. However, some experts also warn that such programs must be implemented carefully. When governments distribute large amounts of money directly to citizens, it can impact government budgets, inflation levels, and overall economic balance. For this reason, policymakers would need to carefully evaluate all economic factors before implementing such a plan. Why have people's expectations increased? As soon as the discussion about the $2,000 tariff dividend began circulating across social media, conversations quickly started spreading across social media. Many people are hoping that if such a plan becomes reality, it could bring meaningful financial relief. For those who rely on Social Security benefits, this news has become a source of hope. What could happen next? The next question is, what happens from here? Any major economic program must go through several government processes before it can be implemented. These steps usually include policy development, budget approval, legislative review, and administrative planning. Because of this, it is still too early to say whether this plan will actually be implemented. However, the fact that this discussion is happening suggests that economic relief ideas are being considered. Friends, this was the first part of this news update. In the next part, we will discuss who could qualify for the $2,000 payment, what challenges the government might face, and when payments could potentially be issued if the plan is approved. So if you want to understand the complete details, make sure to watch the next part of the video as well. Until now, we explained what a tariff dividend actually is, and why there has suddenly been so much discussion about a $2,000 economic payment. We also talked about how this news started spreading and why millions of people are now paying attention to it. Now, in the second part, we are going to discuss the most important question, and that question is, if the $2,000 tariff dividend actually becomes real, who could receive this money? Will every person receive this payment? Or will only certain groups qualify? And could people who receive Social Security benefits also be included? So let's understand this topic in detail. Possible eligibility. Friends, as of now, no final official eligibility list has been released. However, based on several economic discussions and policy analyses, some possible groups of eligible people are being discussed. Retired citizens. First, let's talk about retired citizens. In the United States, millions of people rely on Social Security payments every month after retirement. These payments are managed by the Social Security Administration. If the government plans to provide economic relief, retired citizens are often given priority. That is why many experts believe that Social Security beneficiaries could be included if the $2,000 tariff dividend is approved. Low-income families. The second possible group is low-income families. There are many households in the United States that live on limited income. These families feel the impact of inflation more than anyone else. When the prices of food, healthcare, and rent increase, their household budgets become very difficult to manage. So, if the government launches an economic relief program, low-income households could also be included in the eligibility list. Taxpayers. The third possible group could be tax-paying citizens. Because the money collected through tariffs becomes part of government revenue, some experts believe that if a tariff dividend is distributed, it could potentially be shared among taxpayers. However, this is not officially confirmed yet. Disabled citizens. Another important group is people receiving disability benefits. In the United States, many individuals receive disability benefits through Social Security programs. Because they are already part of the Social Security system, there is a possibility that they could also be included if a financial relief payment is introduced. Families receiving survivor benefits. There are also families that receive survivor benefits. These benefits are provided to families whose loved ones passed away but were part of the Social Security system. If the government decides to distribute broad economic relief, these families could also potentially qualify. Will everyone receive $2,000? Now, another big question is, will every person receive $2,000? The answer is not necessarily. In many government relief programs, there is usually an income limit. That means people whose income is above a certain threshold may not qualify for the payment. This rule has been used in several previous relief programs, so if the tariff dividend becomes reality, an income limit could also be applied. How could the payment be delivered? Now let's talk about how the payment might reach people. If the government decides to provide a $2,000 payment, there are two possible methods: direct deposit. Many Social Security beneficiaries already receive their monthly payments through direct deposit into their bank accounts. If the tariff dividend is approved, the government could use the same system to send the money directly to bank accounts. Paper checks. In some cases, the government also sends payments through paper checks. However, today, direct deposit is far more common, so electronic payments would likely be the main method. When could people receive the payment? Now comes the biggest question. If this program becomes real, when could people receive the money? Any economic relief program requires several steps before it can be implemented. For example, policy planning, budget approval, distribution system preparation. Because of these processes, it can take time before payments actually reach people. Political discussion. Right now, there is also a lot of political discussion in the United States about economic policies. During these discussions, the name of former U.S. President Donald Trump often comes up. This is because he previously emphasized trade policies and tariffs during his administration. That is one reason why the idea of a tariff dividend is sometimes connected to discussions involving his economic policies. However, the final decision always depends on lawmakers and government policymakers. Would this be good for the economy? Some economists believe that if people receive extra money, they tend to spend more. This can increase consumer demand, which can help stimulate the economy. However, other experts warn that too much money entering the economy at once could increase inflation. That is why economic relief programs must be implemented carefully and in a balanced way. What should people do right now? If you are a Social Security beneficiary or someone living in the United States, the most important thing is to rely only on official sources of information, because on social media, incomplete or misleading information can spread very quickly. So, until the government makes an official announcement, it is important not to treat any rumor as confirmed news. Friends, this was the second part of our discussion. In the next part, we will talk about how this program could affect the U.S. economy, whether more payments like this could happen in the future, and what the future possibilities are for Social Security beneficiaries.
Friends, why is there so much discussion about the $2,000 tariff dividend, and if this plan is implemented, who could actually benefit from it? We have already understood why this news has become so important for Social Security beneficiaries. Now, in this third and final part, we are going to talk about some other important questions, such as, if this plan is actually implemented, what impact could it have on the U.S. economy? Could similar payments be made in the future? And what possibilities could arise for Social Security beneficiaries going forward? So let's understand this topic in detail. Possible impact on the economy. Whenever the government gives a large amount of money directly to people, it usually has an impact on the economy. If millions of people receive a $2,000 payment, it means a large amount of money will suddenly enter the market. When people have extra money, they tend to spend more. They buy groceries, purchase clothes, travel, and spend money on many other things. This increases demand in the market, and when demand increases, businesses and industries also benefit. That is why some economic experts believe that if people receive additional financial support, it can help stimulate the economy. Risk of inflation. However, there is also a concern associated with this, and that concern is inflation. Some experts believe that if too much money enters the market at once, inflation may increase, because when people start buying more goods and services, the prices of those goods can sometimes rise. That is why governments must maintain a balance when implementing such financial support programs. Impact of tariff policy. Now let's talk about tariff policy. A tariff is a tax that the government places on imported goods. Sometimes governments increase tariffs to encourage domestic industries and protect local businesses. Several political leaders have described tariffs as an important part of economic policy. In this context, former U.S. President Donald Trump has also raised the issue of trade policies and tariffs many times. That is one of the reasons why his name often comes up in discussions about the tariff dividend. Importance for Social Security beneficiaries. Now let's talk about Social Security beneficiaries. Millions of people in the United States receive Social Security payments every month. These payments are managed by the Social Security Administration. They include retired citizens, disabled individuals, families receiving survivor benefits. For these people, any additional financial assistance can be a major relief. This is because many retired individuals have limited income and depend heavily on their monthly Social Security payments to cover everyday expenses. If they receive an additional payment, it could help improve their financial situation to some extent. Could there be more payments in the future? Another important question is whether similar payments could be made in the future. Friends, this completely depends on government economic policies and the federal budget. If the government has sufficient revenue and economic conditions remain favorable, then financial relief programs could be introduced in the future. However, nothing is guaranteed. Political and economic decisions. Behind every major economic decision, there are several political and economic processes. The government must consider many factors, such as approval from Congress, the condition of the national budget, and the potential economic impact. That is why implementing any new program can take time. What should people do? If you are a Social Security beneficiary or live in the United States, the most important thing is to rely only on official sources of information. This is because misinformation can spread very quickly on social media. Until an official announcement is made by the government, it is not wise to consider any news as final. Conclusion. So friends, in today's video, we discussed in detail what the $2,000 tariff dividend is, why it is being discussed, who might benefit from it, and what impact it could have on the economy. Although there has not been a final official announcement yet, the discussion itself suggests that economic relief measures are being considered. If any new and official updates about this topic come out in the future, we will definitely keep you informed. Friends, if you want to stay updated with the latest news related to Social Security, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Also, like the video and share it with your friends. I will see you in the next video with another important update. Thank you.